Yes, those who were here yesterday will testify that this conference was really, really, really lit. It was the best of it you can just think of, because we had amazing speakers speaking on different perspective of how we can be able to change the African narrative, how we can engage financial intelligence in changing the African narrative, how we will begin to have a positive self-image about ourselves. One of the major issues we were able to find out yesterday, that one of the greatest enemies is that of what? Identity. So today I want to begin my session before we proceed with the panel session in the next couple of minutes. All right. So I'm going to be speaking about the need for visionary leadership in Africa. All right. So what is visionary leadership? I want to define visionary leadership in my own terms as this is the ability to see a prepared future and then rally the relevant resources and materials to bet the future into reality. Let me take it again. Visionary leadership is the ability to see a preferred future and rally the relevant resources and materials needed to bet the future into reality. You see, how can we be able to engage visionary leadership in changing the African narrative? You see, the reality is that where we are as a people is as a result of the picture that we have in our minds that has made us to be where we are. Or let me put it better, the picture that our leaders have in their minds is what they have taken us into, and that is where we are today as a people, as a continent. So the picture you see about where you are going determines where you go. You cannot get to your destination if you don't know where you're going. So what you see about yourself from yesterday, we were able to understand that what we see, we cannot rise beyond what we see about ourselves. So today, I define to us visionary leadership as the ability to see a preferred future and rally the relevant resources in order to bet the future. What is Africa seeing? What are we seeing for Africa? This is a very fundamental question, because if we do not see anything about ourselves and where we are, then we will do nothing about it. So my question now is, what do you see for your community? What do you see for your nation? What do you see for Africa? Because what you see is very fundamental for you to change the narrative about what you are seeing. If you are seeing a transformed health sector in Africa, then you are going to commit yourself to making sure that that becomes a reality. You will commit yourself, you will rally every relevant resources that will be needed for you to bet that into reality. So now I ask this question because I want us to just take a few seconds to begin to ask ourselves, what am I seeing for Africa? Do you know why I asked that question? Is because it is very important. Because what you are seeing and what I am seeing, if we put them together, is what will give us the picture of the brand new Africa we are talking about. Because we see in part, we see in segment, we see in fragment. So when we put those things together, that is what gives us a picture of the new Africa. But if we have, if we see nothing about where we are, if we see nothing about the new African is emerging, then where are we heading to? Where is your nation heading to? Where is your nation going? So we see visionary leadership is very important in Africa. If we really want to change the African narrative, then we must be visionary about what we want to change. We must see a picture. We must have a picture in our mind about what we want to change. You see, what we see is very key to where we are going. I need to stress that. I need to stress that point. What we see is very, very important to where we are going. Because if you don't see anything, you will go nowhere. That's the truth. You see, the future does not actually exist. The future is that one you create. The future does not exist because you can't sit down and tell me, okay, when the future comes. Okay, when is the future? The future does not exist. The future is that one you have created in your mind and you're ready to work towards bringing it into reality. That is the future. And the future comes when you begin to work towards bringing it into reality. So when it comes into reality, now you can say the future has come. Now, let me take for instance now. If you are a health personnel and then you want to see a new health sector emerge in Africa, that is the picture you have in your mind. That is the future you are seeing for Africa. So you are seeing a future for Africa of what? That will have a good health sector. So now, how does that come into reality? It comes into reality when you begin to what? When you begin to work towards achieving that. First, you say, okay, I need to study a medical related program or course. I need to become a medical doctor, because the narrative that Africa is a disease continent must change because I've come on the scene. I need to change this narrative. It cannot continue to be a disease continent. Something must change about this. Because I am here, my continent must have a new story to tell. So you are beginning to create the future for Africa. And you are taking on that journey. It may look so big that if you look at yourself and the picture or the vision you're seeing for Africa, it tends to seem as though it's impossible. But you see, the truth is, all the developed nations, let me use America for instance. If you want to study the history of those nations, you discover it's not actually the government that actually changed those nations. Single-handedly, men, somebody have a vision of something. Okay, I want to dwell on the what? On the oil sector. I need to transform this sector. He gave him his energy, his resources, and everything, his time and intelligence to be able to change that. And that is what has transformed that particular sector in America. It's no other person than John D. Rockefeller. Andrew Kennedy was one of the men that said, no, we need to connect we need to connect America through the rail lines. And he began pursuing this road. Sorry for the little break. All right, so let's continue. You see, in translating your vision into reality, I want you to settle this. I want you to settle this, that is going to be difficult, tough, and challenging. Yes, in translating your vision into reality, settle this. Is going to be tough, difficult, and challenging. In fact, it will seem impossible for that to be achieved. But you see, impossibility only exists in the mind. If you believe it, it becomes impossible. Because it is difficult does not make it impossible. No. Because it is difficult does not mean it is impossible. No. It is difficult, but it is possible. So, we have this saying in with my team members. We have this saying among us that it's part of our philosophy as an organization that Africa is possible because I am possible. I'm so very sorry for the break in transmission. You need to bear with us. Okay, as I was trying to say, okay, somebody suggesting I go back a little. All right, I began saying that in translating your vision into reality, be rest assured it's going to be difficult, tough, and challenging. You need to settle that in your mind. And you see, the tough and challenging environment you find yourself to work with is what will keep you on your feet. It's what will make you, in fact, you need the difficulty to be able to make the difference. You need the challenging environment to actually be able to make a difference. Yes, you need the challenging environment you have to be able to make the difference. You need a hot oil to fry a fish. So the fish cannot be fried if there is no hot oil. So the difficulty we will be having to face with is what we need to actually make the difference. We need it. So you see, visionary leadership is what we need in Africa. The question I always ask is, what are our leaders actually seeing for our continent? Let me not even use leaders. What are our politicians actually seeing for our continent? Because there's a difference between a leader and a politician. Yes, there's a big difference between the two. You see, the reason why I'm speaking to us like this, because leadership is not about position. Leadership is about taking responsibility. And all of us here are leaders in our various fields. We are leaders where we are. Because even leadership first begins with self-leadership. Leadership does not begin first at the corporate level. Leadership begins at what? At a personal level. So the reason why I'm speaking to us like this, we are speaking to ourselves like this, is because we have to begin to own our own story. We need to begin to change our own narrative. We can't allow it anymore to continue the way it is. Somebody must need to tell himself that we need a change in our continent. And you see, there are so many problems in Africa to be solved. Yes, we need to know this. There are so much problems to be solved in Africa. And you cannot solve all the problems you alone. It's not possible. You can't solve the problems you alone. So what you need to do is to what? Is to have a vision of what you want to change in Africa. So you need to be, the vision you have is what gives you what? Is what gives you direction toward what you want to change about about Africa. So it's what keeps you focused. Vision keeps you focused on what specific problem you want to change in Africa. There are so many problems. You can't change everything. Yes. And you need to see something that you want to change. A particular, because you see, we have already been labeled by people who think they know us more than we do ourselves. We are a disease continent, we are a poverty continent. But you see, why do you want to be a businessman? Is it just because of selfish ambition to amass wealth to yourself? Or is it because it's an attempt to create job opportunity for the teeming young population we are beginning to have on the continent? You see, there must be a drive. There is something you want to achieve. Africa seems to be very big. How can I change everything? No, you need to begin where you are. Where you are, that is where you need to start changing the narrative. You see, I began telling us that you need to be rest assured in translating your vision into reality of changing the African narrative. It's going to be tough and challenging. But see this. You have to be stubborn and insistent about your vision for the new Africa. I repeat, you need to be stubborn and insistent about your vision for a new Africa. You need to be what? You need to be stubborn and insistent about your vision for a new Africa. It's not going to be an easy journey. So until you have settled in your mind that it's not going to be easy, and so for that reason, I'm not just going to confront this thing lightly. I need to be what? Stubborn and insistent. You must insist on what you want to change about Africa. You must insist on what you want to change about your community. You must insist about what you want to change. It's an easy journey for us to change the African narrative. But no matter how long it will take us, we must remain committed on reaching to our destination. No matter how long it's going to take us, we must be committed to reaching our destination. And you see, because of the toughest situation we found ourselves, the disadvantage we have found ourselves, which is not totally or 100% in itself a disadvantage, is also an advantage, because you have an opportunity to actually make a difference. Because when there are problems, that means there is a need for solutions. And until you are visionary enough to see the need for any problem to be solved, we will continue to remain where we are. So vision is very powerful tool we need to engage to change the narrative, because what we see is very important. What we see determines where we go. What we see determines where we go. So where are we going? You see, the African terrain does not support weaklings. Let me repeat this. The African terrain does not support weaklings. So you must of necessity be dogged and resilient in betting the new future. I don't know if someone gets me. The African terrain does not support weaklings. So if you are not dogged enough in betting the new future and resilient to see that a new Africa emerge, when you are hit with those difficulties, you will quit. I assure you, you will quit. but we cannot allow the difficulty that we are supposed to overcome us. We must walk through the difficulty. We must walk through the difficulty and be able to to surmount them and be able to have victory at the end of the day. So let us know that the African terrain does not support weakness. We must be dogged and resilient in betting the new future. And visionary leadership is what we need in changing this narrative. You have been tagged and labeled a poverty-stricken nation or continent. You have been tagged and labeled averaged. What do you want to change about this narrative? You have been tagged as the people without a history, apart from the history that begins from the colonial era. You see, I wonder how can people tell us that you don't have a history? What you are trying to tell us is, if a people do not have a history, is that you telling us that they do not have a culture. And if a people do not have a culture, you are trying to tell us they do not actually exist. Because a culture tells us about the way of life of the people. And if the people were existing before you came, you can't tell us that they do not have a history. Africa have a rich cultural history. And we have been labeled as a people without identity. In other words, we do not exist. But that's not true. But those narratives we can't allow them to be our limitations. Rather, we should be ready to change those narratives, not to prove a point, but because we need to change the story of our continent. We talk about the future, but do you see who is the future? You and I are the future. Well, let me put it, you and I is the future. We are the future that Africa has been waiting for. And here we are on the scene. And we are still waiting for what? We're still waiting for somebody else to come and change what we are made to change. We are waiting on somebody to come and do what we are supposed to do. Somebody said something. He said, we are waiting on the government. Okay, yesterday one of our speakers said, we are waiting on the government while the government is waiting on us. So you can see the irony of it all. We are waiting on the government and the government is waiting for us to bring innovative ideas, to employ our creativity in changing the narrative of Africa. And here we are, the young people that we are meant to change the narrative, to change the story. We are also waiting on the government to what? To change those situations. There is no time in the history of our continent like now, when the young people are faced with the challenge of changing their own story. We are at a time when the young people are the ones to begin to change, to own the responsibility of the continent and begin to change the narrative. It's going to be a heavy task. It's going to be difficult. But you see, it is this difficulty, it is this difficult environment that actually will make us or bring out our own uniqueness as a people. So we can't give up. We must remain resilient. We must remain resilient. We must remain dogged about our commitment to changing the African narrative. But it must first begin with having a picture. Having a picture about what you want to change, because that's what keeps you on track. What do you want to change about Africa? You must be very clear about it, because that's what gives you direction. That is what helps you channel your resources, energy, and abilities in changing the narrative. You see, changing the African narrative is not something is big. It's about you. It's about you. It's about me. If I have a clear vision of what I want to do with my life, and I'm settled to pursuing it, that is what determines where I channel my energy and resources towards. That is what determines where I channel my abilities. That is what informs me of the skills I need to acquire in order to change my story. So I believe that I was able to make some sense to us this afternoon from this end. I believe we are beginning to have something. We are beginning to see a different picture of what we want to change about our continent. Please, if you have been with me and you have really gained value from what has been spoken about, please, I'd like you to drop them in the chat box as we reviewed as a feedback. I want to be sure that somebody really got something from what we said, if it really make any sense. All right, thank you, Sir James. And I want to challenge you. I want to challenge us to begin to see something that we want to change. What is that thing you're seeing? What is that thing you want to change about your community? Write it down. I always tell my team members, your first commitment to your vision is that you write it down. That is your number one commitment to your vision. If it is not written, it's not real. Forget it. Until it is written, it is not real. So whatever